All right. Well, Mr. Jimmy Arnett, thank you for finally joining me here on the show. And we've been talking about this for a couple of years now. We'll be sort of capturing a story of my father, probably things I don't know or that I'm vaguely familiar with from over the years. But of course, we lost him in January of 2019. I'm intending to do this with a number of people,
Yep.
actually, for the sake of this little project. But we'll get to, well, let's work our way toward when you met my father. But I know, of course, you know of some family history back hundreds of years on both sides of the family. And your father was involved in World War II. So I'd like to sort of hear those things, um, how you ended up in New Orleans as a family unit. And was before the move uh, to Franklin area?
Um, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so just kind of your
Okay.
family history from the 1500s, I think, on your mother's side, 1812, I believe, on your father's.
That's right. Well, number one, thank you for this. I appreciate it, and there's really not a week that goes by that I don't think about him, um, because I love listen to the old records and the old music, and of course we'll get to that, but we played a lot of it, from the Beatles to, but we'll get into that. But so I listen to those songs every day, and I I think about them. So anyway, thank you for doing this.
Yes, sir.
So I was born in New Orleans. My sister and I, Jane, were born in New Orleans. My dad was James Garland Arnett. He was born in Gulfport, Mississippi, and but he grew up in Bogalusa, Louisiana. My mom was born on on land next to my grandfather's plantation south of Montague, so way down there. Um, and so that's where my mom's side of the family came from, on the Louisiana side. Um,
Do you know how they ended up here?
oh, yeah. So let's see, my dad, growing up in Bogalusa, his dad started working for a railroad in Mobile in 1898. And so after he married my grandma, um, they moved from Mobile to I think it was Indianapolis next, and he worked for the Big Four Railroad, which eventually became the New York Central, etc. But then after 2 or 3 years, uh, they moved down to Mississippi, where he worked for a number of railroads that were predecessors of the Illinois Central Railroad. But then he moved to Bogalusa. Bogalusa is a small town founded in, I think, 1912 or so, by the Sullivan family from Boston, I believe. They invested in lumber, and they realized that southern yellow pine, which is uh, very common in the southeastern states, uh, grew from seed to um, a tree that they were able to harvest in 20 years, softwood, and they built a lumber mill. And my grandfather was the conductor on what they called the wood train. And so that train uh, was from Bogalusa, the wood mill, traveled up to over to like Folsom, Louisiana, that area, and a little north of there in Louisiana, and then south to the north shore of the Gulf of the Lake Pontchartrain to pick up pulpwood and logs from all of those gathering places, brought it back to the log mill, and that alone is a story that just I love, you know. And as two of his sons got older, Uncle Mac, my Uncle Mac, and my Uncle Charlie, they also worked on the train. When Grandpa retired, Uncle Mac became the conductor, which Grandpa was, and Uncle Charlie became a switchman. So then, as the logs, um, as the wood just stopped coming, they closed down the lumber mill, but then they built a paper mill. And so my grandpa had already retired, and Uncle Mac became the conductor. Uncle Charlie became the switchman for a while. They married two sisters, and Uncle Charlie moved to Dallas to work for the Texas and Pacific Railroad. Uncle Mac stayed there until he retired in 1969, I believe, or 67 or 68. Um, but he stayed in Bogalusa. So um, anyway, so my dad, so my dad, his brothers were Mac and Charlie. Um, Grew up and worked for the Bogalusa Box Company, I believe it was called. And in 1941, when we declared war on Japan, my aunt, um, no, my first cousin, his sister, was in the living room of the house, laying on the living room floor coloring. And she said, my dad came in and he said, well, I guess I better join. So he joined. He joined the Louisiana Anti-Aircraft Unit National Guard. And so as the war progressed, they changed all the National Guard units to active service. And they eventually they had anti-aircraft guns, so 155 millimeter howitzers, and they moved them to um, Casablanca, off the shore of Casablanca, where in 19 February of 1942, January of 1942, the U.S. landed with little resistance from the Vichy French, who were allies of the Germans, and basically moved into Morocco. And just that history alone is interesting. Um, the U.S. Army was green. We didn't have any experience, and our officers were from World War One, and just so after World War One ended in 1918, all those years, the interwar years, there was really no experience of our army. So, but America, we can do it all, and we can conquer anybody because we are the best in the world. Well, they landed and started moving inland to Libya. Now, in the background, Hitler had assigned Erwin Rommel, who was a tank commander, to command the Africa Corps, which was the German army in North Africa. And so Rommel was in the fight from 1941 against the British, and Rommel was trying to take Alexandria, Egypt, where the British headquarters were. And so they were fighting for over a year. And then finally, the British started pushing Rommel to the west because the Allies had control of the skies, and therefore any supplies moving from Germany, many of them were intercepted by our bombers, and all British, American bombers. So we would just stop the majority of flow of supplies to Rommel. So he had what he had, and he was the the best tank commander in the world. He knew it. He knew what to do with his armor, in conjunction with his infantry too. So anyway, pushing back to the west and back to Libya. Well, by then, of course, we had invaded Libya and Morocco, and then started moving into Libya. And the American generals, they said no one can beat us, and the British had been pounding the Africa Corps for over a year, so we can do this. So anyway, by that time, uh, Dad's unit uh, had been re-equipped with half tracks with quad 40 millimeter guns for anti-aircraft use. So all four batteries, and D, ABC, I should say. And so Dad uh, he was a gunner on a half track. So the generals decide we need to protect the airfields so that we can start landing our fighters and bombers. Well, they pushed our army to the Atlas Mountains. Um, and the important part about the Atlas Mountains were that there was a gap between in the mountain range, and it was called Kasserine Pass. And it's a famous battle in World War II. So I think the commander sent maybe a company of infantry and support, and decided to move the anti-aircraft units, including Dad's unit, to defend an airfield in Kasserine Pass. Well, unfortunately, there really wasn't enough to withstand any attack. But of course, the generals thought that Rommel was weak by then. So I heard this story. Okay, so let me back up a second. So in 1969, I found a reunion letter for his unit on Mom's dresser. And apparently she had been getting these for years and just never mentioned it. Well, by then I was in high school, 69. I was in high school ready to graduate. And I saw this. I asked Mom, what is this? Joe, that's just a reunion that Dad's unit in Bugaloo keeps sending letters for. I said, we're going this time. So my mom, my sister, my dad passed away in 1955. So, but they kept in touch with Mom. So Mom, my sister, and I drove over to Bugaloo, stayed at Uncle Mac's house, and on a Saturday night, I believe, was the reunion dinner. So we went. Well, of course, Mom didn't know all of these people, but they knew her. So three of the guys walked up to my table, and they said, "Jimmy, we have to talk about your dad." So that was
And
the most
what year is this now that you're this?
69.
Okay.
Okay. So I went with them and they sat me down, and it, thinking about that almost brings a tear to my eye every time. They said, your dad was amazing. Um, so when they moved the unit into Kasserine Pass, uh, Rommel turned around with the 10th and 21st Panzer Divisions, and these were tanks, medium and heavy tanks, with grenadiers, and those were infantry mounted on trucks and half tracks, and attacked through the gap at Kasserine Pass. Well, here comes Dad with his unit, and that was it. They were in the front line with the GIs in foxholes uh, surrounding them. Well, again, these are German panzers, heavy tanks and medium tanks, and they just swept through the pass. What they told me, they said your dad was a gunner in Company C, and he they were all in the half tracks firing into the oncoming Germans with their 40 millimeter um, guns. And he said, one of the guys said, orders came down from headquarters to abandon the guns, spike them, and run. And so that's what they started doing, except that he did not spike his guns, which means that would disable them. He kept firing into the oncoming tanks and grenadiers until he couldn't anymore. So he didn't spike the guns. So he, with everybody else, I'm going to say retreated, but they ran for their lives because the tanks just rolled over the foxholes, and the GIs had no chance at all. Um, and I mean, the pride, of course, that I felt was just remarkable. And so, to digress a little, there is this author named Rick Atkinson. He was a journalist, and he was embedded in Iraq uh, when we sent our units in. He wrote a history of the European and Sicilian and North African uh, campaigns in World War II. The first book was Army at Dawn, and that was North Africa. Um, North Africa and Sicily. The second book was about Italy, and the third book was about Germany. Uh, and it's funny because I, Dad left a diary of his movements in World War II, but of course, because of censorship, they they blinked out all of the locations. So all he could do is say we moved 12 miles north. Next day we stayed where we were or something. Next day we moved 2 miles west or so. And so that's all he had. But Rick Atkinson has detailed maps in his trilogy. And I was following his maps along with Dad's diary so I could figure out just about where they were. And so it was really fun to do. But then, so in terms of Dad leaving his guns unspiked, the after action report after the Africa Corps surrendered in North Africa, the Americans surveyed and cataloged the equipment that was left, and one of them was a half track without their guns spiked, only one half track. And I'm thinking, my golly, that's Dad's half track. So anyway, so when they told me that story, and over the years I've done some research, and yeah, so that was nice, you know.
So you were 17 when you found that out? It's around 17,
18. So I was
18.
18 when I graduated from Jesuit.
And your father, you said, passed away in 55, so you were very young.
Oh, I wasn't four. So when Mom and Dad got married, Mom was a nurse, and she graduated from Hotel Dieu in New Orleans, as well as my cousins, my aunt, a lot of people. That was the nurses' school, you might say. And so they met uh, at a dance hall right next to the Louis P. Hong. That's another thing. Val and I always joked about Louis P. Hong, Private Eye, but it's huge long. But anyway, that's an aside. They met at a dance there, and well, they started dating, and they got married. They got married at Ma Del Rosa Church, Catholic Church on Carrollton Avenue. It's where Mom went to school, Auntie, uh, her older sister, Walter, Auntie's son. We all went to school. Val, Johnny, Mike. I mean, and and I'm going to go between your dad and Mike. Okay, so um, either one. Okay. Yeah, we all went to school there. We were in the same parish. We went to church there 9 o'clock every Sunday. So we all got together after church. But anyway, so Dad was working for it's a company called United Gas Pipeline, which had natural gas pipelines from the Gulf, well, from Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, and they would offload the natural gas sometimes to tankers out in the Gulf. And they moved mom and dad to um, this little place called Bayou Sally, Sale. And it was on, I found out it was on the Southern Pacific Railway. And the Southern Pacific went from LA to New Orleans. And so I have found the station. Of course, the station is no longer there, but I drove over there um, sometime, and but you can see where the station was right off the road, just a flat section. So it wasn't a big station. Now Franklin is 18 miles. No, I don't even think it's 18 miles from the Gulf. I mean, it's way down there, and it was southwest of Palo was southwest of Franklin, which is west of Morgan City. So we're on our way to Lafayette, you know. And I forget what highway it is. It's not 90, but it's down there. And so they moved us into a company house built of, if I remember, plywood, uh, but with a big lot. And the lot was surrounded by barbed wire and a big backyard. And I remember there was a ditch in front of the house, and there was a little bridge where you crossed over to get to the house. So I was, boy, I guess I had to be, well, right after I was born. Jane, my sister, my younger sister, was also born in New Orleans, but we were together. So I can't remember the exact date where we moved in, but we were very young. And Mom uh, was a nurse, and I'm not sure she worked in the doctor's office yet, but of course, she was a nurse, so she knew the doctors. And we went to one doctor in Franklin, and can't remember his name, uh, but anyway, I remember some living in that house. The back, the added on back room right by the kitchen was our playroom, and we had all of our toys all over the floor and everything. And um, yeah, I just remember those. And I remember one day, Jane and I were playing in the backyard, and we had climbed the barbed wire fence. I mean, there were metal poles and everything. So we climbed the poles, and we were sitting there, and I saw a black snake coming toward us. Now we were high, and I said, Jane, we gotta run back to the house. And Jane was stuck on the barbed wire. Now I am I am deathly afraid of snakes. It's the one thing, well, that claustrophobia and heights. So I'm scared of all three. So I always imagine being wrapped up in a rug on the roof with a snake coming after me. So my mind's been bad ever since that memory. But Jane couldn't get out, and I'm thinking to myself, she's on her own. She was only a year and a half, so I ran to get Mom. So we all survived, but ever since that, and also when we crossed the bridge in front of our house, there was a ditch, and I had looked down one time after we got groceries, and I mean, I was only 3, but I remember this big snake. That could have been a garden snake, for all I know. A big snake in that little ditch. So, uh, yeah. so that didn't help at all. Um, and looking back, I remember when Dad died on October 31st, I believe, 1955. I was not four. Jane was about a year and a half, and uh, and I looked at all the old records because Mom kept everything. That Dad had all the papers and everything, and they had bought a black Plymouth, I think. And I've got all the records and everything. It's just so much fun to just think about. I also have Dad's records when he was checking the pipeline. He was meter checker, so he would go down the pipeline and just check the meters. And he always listed the miles he drove. I've got all of that, the miles he drove and everything. Dad was kind of a self-made man. Of course, when the war came, um, I don't. He may have graduated from high school. I don't. Bogalusa High. I don't remember. But all everything that I've seen from the records, he went to correspondence school. So and he did all that. And looking at his, he loved to read, and I I have little bitty notebooks. Whatever he read, if he didn't know the word, he would write it down, find the definition, and write it down. And I don't know how many little bitty books I have of those little bitty notebooks, but it's a lot. Um, let's take a break. So so I remember again, Dad went to, well, didn't go to school. He corresponded, and he was also an artist. And I have an envelope from the Dick Blick Company in Minneapolis, I believe. And he would order pencils from there and paper. And I still shop at Dick Blick, and I have kept that one envelope because what he was the safety guy at the that company office. So he would run safety meetings, and he would draw posters of different safety messages and everything about cars and accidents, about trains, everything. So he would run these meetings, and I've got all those posters and all of his notebooks on safety. He was really a good artist. He would copy from cartoons on the in the Sunday paper, um, and he drew this Indian chief. And I have the drawing. It's framed. It will be framed in the on the office wall. And so one day I remember, and again I was three and a half, but it's amazing what you can remember. I was outside with Dad, and he was building a little picnic table for us out of pine. Um, so it was one of those that everything was at it's cross thing. It was just a picnic table. And what he was going to do on the picnic table is draw the United States. Well, he did. He did the alphabet and numbers. So that was one thing. But the next table he was going to do, he was going to draw the United States. So he was drawing um, each individual state, and I was there with him. And Mom told me, she said she looked out the window, and I was drawing two, watching him draw. And she called out and said, "Jim, look what your son is doing." And apparently, what I was doing is I was also drawing each state on paper. So I guess my art, and I've drawn and painted all my life. Uh, I guess that's where it came from. Just watching him, and so anyway, so that's one thing I got out of it. Um,
Well, did your father avoid the railroad? I didn't realize the close ties. I didn't really know how you had gotten into it yourself.
it was because my grandpa and my uncles. No, he didn't. He didn't want to join the railroad. He was the youngest of the boys, and yeah, he just he. I don't know. Yeah, I think after the war, of course, after the war, um, everybody had to find a job, and he found a job, and it was with that United Gas pipeline, and he took pictures of, and maybe he was a foreman at one time, because I have pictures of a crew in the swamps, uh, right next to the Southern Pacific Railroad lane pipe, and I tell you what. I mean, it was swamps where there were snakes, and of course, ugh, whenever I see those pictures, I just can't imagine. But anyway, um, and I remember one night, Dad got called out, um, and we looked out the window, and right over the pine trees was fire. Behind the pine trees, it was just a wall of flames. So Dad was called out to get over to that line while they were working on it to shut off the valves and everything.
And is that still the days of operators on the phones?
Oh yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And we didn't have one of those, wall phones where you spoke into a thing. I mean, it was a phone, a dial phone. So I remember that really clearly. And I have pictures of mom and dad and Auntie and Walter. Uh, they were close to us. Mom was the youngest, and Auntie was the oldest girl from the Wallace family, and so we were very close. Auntie's husband died 6 months after Walter was born from one of the yellow fever outbreaks in New Orleans. Um, so Walter was the only child. He never married. He never drove, you know. So they were always in our pictures. And I have a number of pictures um, of the family in that little house. Um, you know, Dad sitting on the couch, and reading the paper or playing with us, or you know, yeah. So I just value those pictures. Um, yeah, it. I feel I feel like I almost know him from everything that Mom has told me, and Anthony and Walter have told me, and his sisters and brothers have told me, um, and all the papers that Mom left, and the photos. I just feel, I keep thinking when I look at some of those pictures, do I remember him, or is it just a picture that is jogging my memory? Um, because I believe in, I think there are people in this world who remember everything, and I forget what it's called. I just know that memories are there. I just can't call them up. But anyway, so Mom was a nurse, and one day, excuse me, one day Dad got sick, and Mom said it was probably the flu. So she called the doctor, and the doctor said, "Give
And
him a
you're in Bayou Sally at this
bio
point?
salad." Yes.
Okay.
So Mom was a nurse, and he told her, "Give him a shot of penicillin." Now, back then, and even into the '60s, um, Mom would bring home shots of vitamins or tetanus or whatever, penicillin, whatever, and she gave him a shot. Um, and within 20 minutes, he was sick. And so for the next 2 weeks, he was still sick with the flu or whatever. But he reacted to that shot. And 2 weeks later, mom called and said, he's still sick. Doctor said, give him another shot of penicillin. Now, back then, doctors were, you could not question their knowledge. So nurses back then, whatever the doctor said. But mom spoke out and said, Doctor, I think he is allergic to penicillin. And she said, the doctor said, no one is allergic to penicillin. Now, that was back in 1955. Penicillin was, I mean, not a new drug, but, back then they just didn't know everything. So she said, I just think he's allergic. No, no, no. Just give him the shot. She gave him the shot. 20 minutes later, he passed away. Um,
20 minutes?
20 minutes.
Hmm. And
I
were you home at the time?
Yeah, oh yeah. I think
Hmm.
I remember that night. I think I
Hmm.
remember it. Um, so anyway, my auntie and Walter, they came over, and my cousins, and the funeral um, was in Franklin. No, it wasn't. It was in New Orleans, um, uh, right off of I-10, Lake Lawn Cemetery, and the VFW were there, and they had a flag, and they presented the flag to mom, which I still have, and which is framed now in one of those flag frames. Um, and from then we moved obviously um, from Bayou Sally up to Homa, where we lived for a while. And I even met, the people who we rented from, and she, uh, Ms. Ledette, said she would watch Jane and I play in the dirt behind the house. She watched us while mom went to work as a nurse. So we moved back to New Orleans, lived on Ascension Street, I believe, off of St. Charles, and then finally my aunt and Walter lived on Green Street in the double shotgun, and they rented the other side of the shotgun to the Mazzina family. And this is where Val and Johnny come in. So the Mazzinas were, um, they were from, well, yeah, the dad was from New Jersey, I believe. And so anyway, when they had a son, Larry, the house just wasn't big enough. So they moved out, and we moved in next to Auntie and Walter. So that had to be in 1956 or so, 57 maybe, a couple of years after Dad passed away. And in 61, the house across the street on Green Street, um, it was owned by the Ritter family. And of course, we were all good friends with them and the kids. Uh, their family grew up to like 6 kids or something. So they moved to Claiborne, and we bought the house in 60 maybe 61. I can't remember. So anyway, that's where I grew up, on Green Street, New Orleans, about a block and a half from Broadway. And yeah, I mean, so we all went to Mar del Rosa Elementary School. And then when it was time for high school, uh, we all went to Jesuit. One of our friends, Larry Carbo, went to De La Salle, and the girls went to Dominican. Um, and that,
Before we get too far off into the 60s,
yeah,
um, tell me about. After you get back to Green Street, of course, what you were getting into, say, at Mater della Rosa, what you were cutting up, how this sort of posse of young children meet and this grows. What was the political climate in the 50s? Wasn't obviously the media wasn't what it is now. Um,
No.
what I guess just about life growing up in New Orleans in the mid to late 50s.
Um, I remember, so I used to like to draw and color with crayons. And I remember growing up in the 60s, we would, so let's see, I was 10, maybe Jane was 8, about, I guess. And I remember we loved to go crabbing. And, uh, and so mom would load us all in the car. So that was mom, Jane, and I, and Auntie and Walter. Now, by this time, Auntie was born in 1900, so she was 60 something, and Mom was 30 something. She was still young when Dad passed away, and so we would load up in the car, drive over to uh, Lake Bourne, I believe, and cast our crab nets, off the rocky thing. And I remember we brought a barbecue pit, and and Auntie would cook grits, bacon, and egg. I will. There was the best breakfast I've ever had, and we would go crabbing. And I remember one time I saw this little crab in the rocks. So I reached down thinking, it's a little crab. Boy, he pinched me, and that hurt so bad. I was crying. I mean, it's amazing what those little suckers can do. Uh, but so we would go crabbing, and sorry, I'm running out of battery power. Um, so it's amazing. So we would bring home, I don't know, a bushel basket of crabs, and Mom and Auntie would boil them, and we would have French bread, and I don't know, it was good corn on the cob. And I remember one day, everybody was in the kitchen, Mom and Auntie, Jane, and Walter and I. And Walter tipped over the bushel basket of crabs, and the place went wild. Mom, Auntie, and Jane were just screaming, and Walter and I were just laughing and laughing. All these crabs were just running around the kitchen. So I remember Mom yelling, "Walter, get those crabs up!" So we would just herd them in, and of course, you had to pick them up by the back so that they wouldn't pinch you. And we put them in the basket. But geez, I just remember that, and I also remember Good Fridays. So we were Catholic, no meat, and no music, no TV, no radio. So mom was very strict about that. So we had a dining room in the back, right by the back door, and mom would just spread newspapers over that, and they would have boiled crabs, and they bought shrimp and crawfish, French bread, corn on the cob, and we would just eat and eat and eat. And so I remember later on, and this is just kind of jumping a little. I remember later on, uh, my first wife Denise and I were dating, and she was from Blue Island, Illinois, the Chicago area. So of course, seafood was, not her thing. And I remember we would all be sitting around this table, and of course, uh, everybody was just cracking these crabs open, just cracking the crawfish and the shrimp. And Denise, uh, our mom, our kids' mom, she would just go in my bedroom, because she just couldn't stand the smell or the look. But she liked crab meat, so I must have loved it because Mom said I I picked a couple of crabs and put all the meat in a little dish and brought it to her. But I remember this one day. It was Good Friday, and your dad was there. Mike was there, and so Walter was a big eater, and I was a big eater, and well, Mike was a big eater too. We would sit at that table and we would all be eating. And I remember your dad putting his putting his elbows on the table and just kind of I have to show you just elbows and just kind of put his hands under his chin, and he'd be eating, and all of the crawfish juice would be dripping, and of course what we did was we put the French bread under our chins, and all the good stuff, the fats and everything would just drop into the French bread, and of course it was delicious. But I remember we were all eating. So let's see, Jane was the first to leave the table. I think Auntie was the second, Mom was the third, and then Walter, and it was just your dad and I. And I bet between us, your dad must have eaten a dozen crabs. I may have eaten eight, um, and shrimp and the crawfish. I think your dad must have eaten, I'm going to say 10 pounds of crawfish, and I must have eaten eight. I mean, we were
Yeah.
just chowing down. This must have been in, so Denise and I met in 74. So this must have been in 75, maybe 76. So I'm sorry, I just jumped over that, but
No, was he dating mom by then?
um, I'm not sure. So he was good friends with the Rileys, Kevin Riley, and of course they went to our church too, and they lived on Maple and Burdette, and he may have been dating Kevin, or maybe even Mary, who eventually married Val Lafonte, one of our good friends. And so I don't think so. I don't think so. Um, so anyway, sorry, just jumped over there for. Okay, Tim, I'm at 1%. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you go get plugged in and set up in a different spot
yeah, I can try. Let me try that.
just to
Okay.
see? Okay.
Okay, let me just turn this off.
So thank you for joining me again this afternoon, sir. But when we finished last time, you were just mentioning that you and Dad had shared some crawfish at a table, and then I had asked about if he was dating mom yet, and I think we determined he was not at this 1975. I don't know if you wanted to continue on the point you were on earlier, or double back about 20 years or so, um, when you first kind of how your and Dad's stories
Yeah,
tied together.
let's go back, okay? Because that was just an aside,
Sure.
and he shared some crawfish with me. Just to be clear.
Yep.
Anyway, ever since you asked me to do this, I have thought about it, and I honestly do not remember when we met. I think I know. Um, we all went to church together, and we're all in the same school, but I didn't know them. I knew my friends Val and Johnny Lafonte because their mom, when she was married, my mom was maid of honor. So they were very close before uh, they were married. So uh, we, after my dad passed away, we moved to Homa, then New Orleans. And we lived, I think, in an apartment on Ascension off of St. Charles, I believe. my aunt, well, Auntie and Walter, owned a double shotgun on Green Street, and the family who was renting the other side was the Mazzino family, and Shirley was uh, Buddy Mazzina's sister. So that's how we got to know. Well, I mean, Mom knew Aunt Shirley before that, but that's how we got to know them better. Um, excuse me. Well, Larry, the oldest, was born, and they didn't have room in that second half of the house. They moved out, and we moved in next door with Auntie and Walter. So I was 4, I guess, and Jane was 2, maybe and a half. Um, so that's where we lived on Green Street, and so we would go over to the LaFontes, not every Sunday, but a lot of Sundays, and Aunt Shirley would make spaghetti and meatballs. And so we would be over there quite a bit. And Val and Johnny and I would throw the baseball in front of the house, and we go around to the little Dublin playground 2.5 blocks away and throw the football around. So we were over there quite a bit. And as I got older, I would ride my little bike over there, and we would play music or records, Beatles records usually, things like that. Well, one day I rode over there, and they were in the backyard, and there was a shed in the backyard with a window facing the house. And I don't even know if that window had uh, a sash and window panes or anything. It was just an opening, so it could be that the window was open. And your dad, Mike, so this was maybe 59 or so. I don't know. But your dad was driving the stagecoach, and Val and Johnny were fighting off the engines. So I watched this thing go on, and I was so shy. I don't even know if I actually met Mike then. Honestly, I could have just gone back home. I don't remember. Um, but Val, Johnny, and I hung out quite a bit. I've even got a picture of us three sitting on the back steps of their house on View Street, all wearing 6 shooters and cowboy hats and the whole bit. And we were small. So I think when I saw your dad, it was after this. So we never, so I think maybe before we got to high school, maybe seventh or eighth grade, we started playing football in the Dublin playground. And back then this was like the Buffalo Bills stadium. It was huge. Of course, now I could probably take 5 steps across. But back then, man, this was the big time. And I don't remember who exactly we all started playing with, but it was me, Val, and Johnny, and Mike, and I think Val and Johnny's cousin Jordy, and maybe Chris Ballone. So it was like 3-on-3. And I remember Val was the quarterback, and I think maybe Chris was the quarterback on the other team. So it seemed to be always me, Val, and Mike against Chris, Jordy, and Johnny, I think. Uh, so I remember one Sunday where um, Val just sprained both ankles at the same time. So again, the game stopped. But while he was quarterback, I remember your dad was so much bigger than all. He was just tall, and he was bigger than all of us. And I remember him going out for passes, and it was smooth. I always admired him for that. He just ran some smooth routes, and he had good hands. So I remember those times, and I guess I got to know him then. Uh, after all those years of being close friends, I always think it's funny that I don't remember those early times. Um, so anyway, we played football, and that's how we got to know each other. Well, one Sunday night, okay, your dad used to hang out with this family called the Niemeyers, and they went to Mado Rosa Church. We were all in the same parish. And so he would usually spend time with them on weekends and everything. I remember this one Sunday, um, I was playing outside. It was dark. It was Sunday night, and I was playing outside, I don't know, paper airplanes or something. And mom came outside and told me that Mike had been in a terrible accident in Mississippi, and he was in the hospital. And Tim, it was like I don't remember a lot of the times before when we got together and Mike and I talked or anything, but it was that point in time where I stopped and thought to myself, Mike is my best friend. I don't know why or how or anything, but that's what I said to myself. And I think from then on, I didn't see him in the hospital or anything, but from then on, I thought differently of him for some reason. Um, so after he got out of the hospital, so I don't remember what was he in eighth grade or seventh grade? I don't remember. Uh, but somehow we started getting together, and he and I played guitars and sang. I would sing with a couple of neighbors, and I don't know how, but we realized that we both played guitar and we both sang and we liked the same music. Um, the Beatles, obviously, Simon and Garfunkel, and in the 70s, America. Oh, let's see, John Denver, Creedence Clearwater Revival, the Moody Blues. Somehow, the Moody Blues was sorry, a very common band for us, and we both really liked their music.
I remember growing up early on when I think, probably first moved to Shreveport. So that was 91, 92, I guess. That was, for some reason, I was really attached to Wildest Dreams by the Moody Blues.
Yeah,
He played it every time with that cassette tape on the way, up to Shreveport. Anyway, sorry.
but yeah, and Wildest Dreams was before. I mean, after um, we both moved. So that album, Long Distance Voyager, was later. So we really stuck with the first uh, um, album with the orchestra and everything. Nights in White Satin, Tuesday Afternoon, uh, those songs, and Story in Your Eyes. I mean, the Every Good Boy Deserves Favor. That was one of our big ones. And Question of Balance, On the Threshold of a Dream. So I think I got the music to most of those songs. And so anyway, we would just uh, before you knew it, we were seen together, be together all of the time on weekends and just playing music. I remember one Saturday, I think, in his room, we had the Beatles songbook on the bed, and we played we played for over an hour and loved it. Um, Before that, we both had just cheap guitars, but then Cheryl bought a Yamaha, and it was just beautiful. Well, I finally got a Yamaha maybe a couple of years later or something like that, but it was hard to play. Mike was doing these bar chords and a whole bit, and I mean, I had calluses and all that, but it was the strings just hurt. Well, it wasn't until 10 years ago, honestly, that my son in law told me, "Why didn't you adjust the strings?" I said, "What are you talking about?" Then he showed me how you adjust the strings with an Allen wrench. And, I think back and realize that, geez, if I would have known that, I could have been playing up a storm. Not as good as Mike, because your dad worked at it. I mean, he was he was a hard worker when it came to his music. Um, and I just, yeah, I'm kind of happy go lucky and laid back. And um, I would tease him a lot. And I regret that now. But uh, I don't know. That's what we did. We played music together. And think I talked to you maybe earlier this morning or yesterday or something like that, that I do not recall a time when Mike and I sat down and had a serious conversation. After all those years, um, what brought us together was football and our music. And yeah, I'm sure we must have, but I think it was just the fact that we were together. That's what I remember most to this day. I always think about him because the music that I play on my iPod, my iPhone or whatever it's called, um, it's all the music we played. It's the 60s and the 70s, some 80s. That's what I like, So every time I hear Simon and Garfunkel, I knew our parts. So, the Bee Gees, that was one. So he would sing the first verse, and if it was a three-verse song, I would sing the second, and he would sing the third, and I would harmonize when he sang because I had a little higher voice. So I remember, oh gosh, Sounds of Silence, and I Am a Rock. Um, John Denver, we played a lot of John Denver too, and I would always sing the harmony. It's just I was in the band, so I guess I picked up harmony from the time I started playing. Mom played the piano, my sister played the piano, so somehow I tuned into the relationship between the lead and the harmony. So I just enjoyed the heck out of singing harmony. Um, I wish we had a third. I wish we were like America with three of us. You know, Um, so over the years, Cheryl would join in, and that was nice. That was lovely. Um, so we got into high school and then maybe college, I guess. Oh, we would go to football games together. And when we were in college, um, I we both got a job at this place called Toy Center on Jefferson Davis in Washington. And one of our family friends, Mrs. Michelle, her son was Eddie, and he and I used to play music together, just a little. But anyway, so she was um, in the store, and we both applied for a job. And Mike got the warehouse job, and I got the sales job, I guess. Um, and and really, Mike was better at it than me, but so anyway, so every Saturday that we worked, um, we would go out to um, uh, the inn, like Cottage Inn on Carlton. Gosh, how could I forget that? Um, anyway, we went there and we got um, uh, uh, a barbecue beef sandwich and a big plate of onion rings. And we would take them back in the store and just eat the whole lunch hour, you know. But every Saturday we did the same thing. Um, so he quit near the end of summer, and school was starting back, so I did too. Um, but in college, we were all together. So it was Val, Johnny, Mike, Chris Malone, um, the Riley girls, Kevin and Sean, um, Mary, Ebony, um, Sharon, who would be, who is now married to Johnny LaFonte. There were a bunch of us who would just meet at school. I'd spent 2 years at Loyola, and then I moved to LSU-NO when Jane was old enough to go. We just couldn't afford two Catholic schools, so we would all meet before classes and in the cafeteria in the Union Center, and and then we would just park outside of the Union Center in the grass toward the lake, and all of us would come and go between classes. Gosh, I remember one morning we so there were these salt shakers, of course, class salt shakers. So we would, one of us would sit, two of us would sit on opposite sides, and we would, how stupid is this? We would slide the the shakers together to meet in the middle. Well, as you can imagine, it could only end one way, and it did. Salt and pepper all over the place, broken. That was the last time we played, I believe. I think we went outside then, right after that incident. So I remember a couple of classes we took. I think the French Revolution. So Val and I were interested in Napoleon, and and then Chris and Mike also took the French Revolution too. So we would, between classes, we would pretend like we were the guys in the upper government of the French. We would talk like that the whole bit. So, um, but we kept playing football. So every Saturday, we would meet to play football. And of course, we grew out of Dublin Street very quickly and we moved to Tulane. So, in between the buildings, Tulane has some tremendous fields. Space. So we would play every Saturday. We would always play at Dublin until we got older, and then we played every Saturday at Tulane. And then when your dad and family moved out to the lakefront, there was a park not too far, and we would play there 4-on-4. And let's see, Sharon, who was Johnny's girlfriend, um, Mary, who is Val's girlfriend, um, sometimes Cheryl, maybe Terry, I don't know. So they would sit on the sidelines and we would play football. And we loved it. I remember so your dad was the quarterback. After the accident, he became the quarterback. And he was really good. Boy, he was a good receiver, but he was a great quarterback. And I remember we were always on the same team. I don't know whether we picked each other or whatever, but I was an N and I was not quick. I had good hands, but I couldn't run like Chris and Larry. They were very fast. But I remember this one time uh, I was running out and it was a long pass, and there was Larry and Chris double covering me. And you, your dad placed that pass between them and into my hands. And Tim, I don't know why I started laughing hysterically because it was it was the finest forward pass that I had ever seen, and I dropped the ball. But I just started laughing because I'm thinking to myself, nobody could have thrown that pass, you know? Not even the Buffalo Bills quarterback, Jack Kemp, or whatever. But he did. And I don't know what. I laughed a lot, still do. So I was,
Was he
my,
laughing after the drop, or was he pretty aggravated?
I have no idea. I
Hmm.
don't think I have faced him after that. Uh, but geez, I don't know. I just, yeah, that I was more lighthearted than he was, but when he laughed, oh boy, it was this high laugh, and he just killed me with that. I would just start just cracking up, you know. But gosh, that was fun. So while on the lakefront, um, we would a lot of times go over to the house and bring our po' boys, um, and we would play Nerf basketball. Well, of course, he was just a tad bit taller than I was, and he was a better shot. So, he won most of the games. But during the summer, we got to play this game that I got at Toy Center. It was a 3M baseball game. And it was one of those where you use the black marker to, write in your lineups and everything. It was during the summer. And we loved this game. And it was one of those things where the pitcher had this card with a wheel, and he would select a pitch, like a fast low ball or something like that. And as the hitter, you had to guess the pitch. So if it was a fast low ball and I picked a fast high ball, then the card said it's a strike. I mean, we would. I don't we wore out the button that we closed the game with, and I mean we played that so often during the summer, and I love baseball. So the American we always played the American League, so I would get the lineups from the paper, and I had these 3x5 index cards, and I would write out the lineups and the pitchers and everything, and we had standings. So before the game, we would pick two teams, and we would just play and note them on the standings. And I don't know how many years we played that, but it was a lot. Um, and it was during, well, sometimes I just may have, don't quote me on this, but I just may have skipped my Spanish class once, or hola, ¿cómo está? Maybe a few times, but it was just doggone fun. Um, and I remember getting together with him on the lakefront. And there was this place where you bought 3 foot long, again, barbecue, po' boys, and onion rings. Boy, that was our diet right there. And we would just sit there, and each of us go through that 3 foot long and all the onion rings, and just have the time of our life, just sitting there chatting or whatever. I remember those days. Gosh, those were fun. Um, and then also, we were all friends. Val, Johnny, Larry, Chris. We're all friends, so we did a lot together. I remember we went to Venetia's on Italian restaurant on uh, Carrollton, just on the other side of Canal, I believe. And we went there. And I remember one time and we would go to movies. Mike and I would go to movies too. But I remember one time we all went downtown to Your Father's Mustache. It was a um, sing along, banjos and the whole bit, the old song. Oh boy. And I mean, it was all the girlfriends and everything. We all sat around this table and we drank and we just sang as loud as we could. But I'll never forget that. Of course, the tornado hit it some years after that, but that was a good memory. We all remember that too, you know. Um, so let's see. um, before early in high school, your dad went out with Kevin Riley, and she lived on Maple and Burdette, right across catty corner from the Snowball, William Snowball shop, where Mike, Val, Johnny, and Chris, and maybe Larry too, um, worked at the Snowball stand. So anyway, we would go over there, and Mike knew the family. The family knew him, and he brought me in. And believe it or not, we would play music while they ate dinner. And I kind of felt funny about that at first, and I figured, they liked it, I guess, or they didn't say anything, you know. But yeah, we did that quite a bit. Um, and I don't remember when that was. It had to be mm, freshman in high school, maybe or so, where they went out, I believe. Um, no, it was more than maybe a sophomore. I don't remember. So I started high school in 65. Mike was a year behind me, so that was 66. So sometime around there, he dated Kevin. Um, and and I don't remember what happened, but they broke up. Uh, and he dated Mary Evely, who became Val's wife. Um, and they broke up, and I remember when. So he met your mom at LSU-NO. She was, I believe, an admin in I'm going to say biology department, whatever. It was a building almost at the end of the campus, and I think I met her once, um, but I don't remember much after that. Um, and in '76, um, I married Denise. We were both working at ICB, International City Bank, and we met each other and we started dating, and we got married on May 1st of '76. And and on July 4th or something like that, we moved to Blue Island, Illinois, where she was from. And I was looking for a railroad job, but I was in banking, been in banking for 3 years. And I was looking for a railroad job, and I forget, Chicago. All the roads go through Chicago. So we moved up there, and it took me 2 years to get a railroad job. And in the meantime, I was working at a bank downtown for 2 years. Um, but we would always come back to New Orleans. And whenever we did, I would call Mike, and and he would come over to the house, and we would play guitars, you know. Um, and in '79, Heather was born, my oldest daughter, and Michael was born, your brother. And I've got pictures of uh, when Mike Ann brought Michael over, and of course it was me and Denise and Heather, and we would be in Mom's living room where I grew up, and we'd be playing music. And I've got a picture, just a great picture, of Mike sitting on your dad's lap and Heather sitting on my lap, and that was fun, you know. And every time um, I would come down there, he always came over, and we always played guitars, you know. Um, and then, so then we moved. I got a road job in Greenville, South Carolina, so we moved there, and I would still come home, and we would still see each other. But by then, um, I think he may have married Patty by then and moved to Shreveport, I think. And I remember one time Denise and I drove over to Shreveport to see him. And so we went to the house. I remember that one time. And then we never lost touch of each other. After 2 years in Greenville, they closed the office and they moved us to Charlotte for 4 years. And we never lost touch with each other, but obviously over the distances, after Shreveport, I think he moved to Chicago, right? Married Tracy, I believe. Um,
If I'm not mistaken, they actually married in Shreveport.
oh, did they really?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Um, now, so over the years, I mean, obviously we didn't talk to each other as much as we did when we lived close together. But if he would call, we maybe talked every 6 months. And if I called him or if he called me, the first words out of my mouth was, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" Hey, how you doing? You know, and we both took the same Spanish lessons in high school from Mr. Francis, and so we knew the whole storyline. ¿Cómo estás? Muy bien. And then how was your dog? And we had the whole thing, and then we started talking. But yeah, I remember that. It was just like I said, it's one of those things where, and I think so many people have this where they're they have close friends, and for some reason, if they move apart or something, when they get back together, it was like the next day, and that's how I felt with Mike. I was always just a continuation of our friendship for over the years. Um, so then I think the job moved him to Memphis, I believe, and he married Jody. I don't remember when. He told me we had lost touch for about maybe a year or so, or a year and a half while he was there. I don't remember why, but I remember one time we talked to each other, and he told me he had married Jody, and um, so that I don't. When was that? I don't remember when that was.
Sometime around 99.
Okay. Um, okay, 99.
That's all. That whole process is a bit of a blur for me, as you might imagine.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember living in Memphis. He had that Plymouth caravan, I think it was. And he told me one time how many miles he put on it to drive down to New Orleans to visit you and Michael and the girls. And I just couldn't imagine just couldn't, how many miles he put on that at one machine. Um,
His lower spine paid for it as well. But
yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
Um, let me see. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. I didn't meet, I did meet Jody. I met Patty because I remember, I don't remember when, but I met Patty. And for Jody, I don't remember exactly when we met, but it may have been I know in '07, I went up there to see him. And I remember because I bought a Mustang in '05, and I remember driving it up there uh, to Collierville, and and I just fell in love with Jody. I mean, um, she took to me like we were like brothers. My dad and I were like brothers. You know, we didn't have to talk to each other every day, but when we did, like I said before, it was like, oh yeah, we just carried on almost like the same conversation. Except of course, things changed. The people we knew changed, and um, where we lived changed. But Jody treated me like just I was just so welcome there. Um, Let me go back to a time before that. I got ahead of myself, so you're gonna have to kind of splice this. I remember when when uh, Mike and Cheryl, Debbie, and Terry lived on uh, Timberland. I would go over there and we would play music, you know. And
Was Aunt Debbie living with them
yes,
as
yeah,
long as you had known them?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And I always remember uh, going to the house and your great grandma, your grandma, yeah,
His his
Mike,
his mother? Yeah.
yeah. God, she treated me like her son. She was so sweet. Your grandpa, I didn't really know him. He always intimidated me. I mean, he was always quiet, and I would say hi and everything, and he would too. But I didn't know him. So he was always sitting in a chair, I think in the living room, reading the paper or something. But I would go over there, and Mike and I would play guitars. We would play that baseball game. We would watch baseball. Um, yeah, I remember I would ride my bike over there. Um, so anyway, I just wanted to mention that because they were very welcoming. And I do remember I was still on my bike. I hadn't driven yet, and they had a lot, right, an empty lot right next to them. And I remember one day riding over there, and the whole family and friends were in the lot playing softball or wiffle ball. And, Cheryl, Terry, Debbie, Mike, and other people, I don't know. But that was my very shy time. So I didn't, I think Mike called me over, but I never really, that was before I started going over to the house and playing music. So I don't know if I met um, your aunts there yet. I don't know. Um, but anyway, so just wanted to throw that in. Um, so so I went up there in I remember '07, the summer of '07. Went up to Collierville, and they had a pool. And Mike had a big green egg, which he loved. And man, he could cook up a stove. Man, I think he made steak and lobster one time. And it was just mouth watering. I mean, it was so good. Or we would go, there was this restaurant across the tracks in Collierville. I want to say it was maybe an Italian restaurant or so. So I remember all three of us went up there, over there. And that was because Collierville's a cute little town. I really like it.
Was that Jim's place, the restaurant?
I remember there were railroad cars toward on Mike's side of the tracks.
Hmm.
It was the old Southern Railway car. That was so.
Okay.
I worked for a railroad for 34 years and I'm model railroader. So um, it was the old Southern Railway, which in '07 was I think they were merged already with the Norfolk and Western to be the Norfolk Southern. So sorry, railroads. But it was across the tracks, and I remember all three of us went over there, and and I remember one. So Denise and I divorced in 2010, and the kids had moved away by then. So Heather, my oldest, she married Aaron Bankson, and he was in the Marines. So let's see, San Diego, Cherry Point, North Carolina, Tulsa, and then finally Fort Collins, Colorado, north of Denver and just a little south of the Wyoming border. And so they've been married for, gosh, they just had like a 2002. They were married in 2002, and they have two wonderful grandchildren. Ian, who's 13, and Lisi, who is 11. And so we would visit them when they were first born, Denise and I. But then in 2013, that was when Lisi was born. And by then, Carla and I had gotten together. We married on January 4th, 2014. And so we would go up there together. And then Jimmy, um, my youngest, he, so uh, Heather met Aaron at Loyola. They were both music majors. And then Jimmy went to Tulane and got a degree in literature. Went up to Chicago, Illinois, Chicago, uh, University of Illinois, Chicago, and got his master's. Then moved to New York and got his PhD in English literature from City University of New York. Um, so, um, so Jimmy's not married. So he's been teaching and all those things, and uh, living in New York, North Carolina, Tennessee, and now he lives in West Virginia. Um, Now, when I married Carla in 2014, her daughter Michaela was just, well, when I first met uh, Carla, her daughter was just starting at University of uh, um, gosh, SFA, which is a school, a, 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 a private school down in Nacogdoches, Texas, um, and Stephen F. Austin um, College, and she music education major. Um, so I got to know her. So stepdaughter, no, she's my daughter. It's We have three kids, and we've always felt that way. So Michaela is married to Danilo Gutierrez. They live in the Woodlands. They have a 3-year-old girl, Catalina, who's just adorable, and they're expecting another little granddaughter. Boy, it could happen almost any time. So we're waiting. Um, so anyway, I forget. So I lost my train of thought there for a second.
Well,
Um,
how much were you and my and dad in touch from, I guess, 2007 until I guess 2019 when he passed?
a lot. Yeah, we would talk a lot, and we visited. So Carl and I visited Collierville twice, I believe, and uh, so I mean, we were in touch, and we saw him twice, and um, so maybe not. We talked, but maybe not as much. Um, and in March of 2018, your sister got married in not in Louisiana, but I can't remember where exactly. Um, Megan?
Megan, yeah, that was in Louisiana. That was down
Yeah.
here.
That was Megan. Yeah.
Hmm.
2018, right?
I couldn't tell you the year, but sounds
Yeah.
about right.
And that's the last time I saw your dad. Um, we He and I just sat together with Carla, and it was like, okay, well, we saw each other yesterday, didn't we? And we would just be together, and got my picture taken with them, and it was just a wonderful wedding, and I believe, well, let's see, yeah, so Heather and Jimmy were there, I believe, too, and maybe Michaela, I don't remember exactly, but I remember I may I may like to meet people and talk a little, just a little, you know. my family says, just stop talking so much. You know, I like to meet people, right? So I would walk around and I was walking around and meeting people. And Carla told me after, she said, um, your dad pointed me out and she said, he's on his farewell tour. So anyway,
That sounds about right. I think I was sitting near Carla.
yeah, you would, yeah, y'all were there.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and, uh, and so Michaela was going to get married in June or July in near Houston. And of course, Mike was invited, and but Jody said, and that was the last time I saw him. We talked, but Jody said um, around that time it says Mike has a real bad cold and he's had a cough for a few months, so we're going to keep him home or whatever, and so it was in that time frame, I think, where they found the cancer. Um, but we would talk and we would text each other quite a bit. And as a matter of fact, um, I remember around September of 2018 or so, um, they were trying immunotherapy, I believe, and different things. And he and I saved our conversation. And he said, "Sorry." He said, "It's been a good ride, and it'll be over," or something like that. And it really hit me hard. And I remember him texting me. And like I said, I don't remember us talking deeply or anything like that. But he told me, he said, "Jimmy, you're like a brother to me, and I love you." And it was that time that I realized that I loved him too, all these years. We never said that to each other. But when he told me that, I realized that your friends, I say I love you to a lot of people because that's really what friends are. They love each other. They don't just like each other. And we would he didn't talk much. We texted quite a bit. Um, and I desperately wanted to see him. And I asked him, and Jody came back, and I understand what it was. Mike didn't want me to see him. Um,
I wasn't, or whatever it's worth, I was not allowed to go. Not allowed is not the right word, but
yeah,
he had always tell me no as well.
yeah, and so Jody would take the weight
Yeah.
on her, and she said, "Jimmy, I'm sorry, but he's going through this therapy, and he can't be exposed to anyone." And later on, I realized that that may have been true, but it's because Mike didn't want me to see him. Um,
Well,
you know,
go
that was
ahead.
him. That was hard.
Well, I know you and I really started keeping in touch toward that time period. I know I was kind of keeping you in the loop as I heard things.
And I can't tell you how much I appreciated that.
Well, it's no problem. It was a tense time. I got the news. Actually, he had those Saints tickets in
Yeah.
the fancy row down there, whatever it
Oh
was.
yeah, he took me to a game in '07, and
Yeah.
we had the I loved it. You know.
Yeah. No, it was awesome, awesome seats.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, obviously he wasn't traveling for the games, so he would pick a kid and, you
Right.
know, throw a pair of tickets.
Yeah.
I went to that one and I was at my buddy's house. We were going to take a cab from his house in Metairie to the Dome. I get the call from Jody kind of telling me what's going down. And
Was that in November, December
I want to say November of
2018?
18, it must have been.
Because they didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
Um,
But I want to say November of 18, got the call that what the actual diagnosis was, I think, stage 4 by then.
yeah.
It was starting to spread and all, and they were trying radiation. You know, I talked to him, I called him every day. Those last few calls, he uh he had some issues. I got the call from Chris, actually, Jody's son.
Yeah.
One day at work, I was in with the same company I'm with now, but in the first role, first position that I was
Right.
hired on to do. That
Yeah.
would have been mid 2018 until about 4 years later when I started moving around again. But
Right.
um, Chris called me, and he doesn't call me, you know. So I jumped up, stepped outside, took the call, and he said, "Look, if you want to see him before he's gone, you better get on the road." And I did that very thing. Work said, "Handle your business, but we got it from here."
Right.
I drove up, I think, to Aunt Terry's house. They were living somewhere south of Jackson at the time, Madison, Mississippi. Anyway,
Yeah. I don't remember.
I went, and it's about halfway to Memphis from here.
Yeah.
I crashed there for the night and then rode with Aunt Terry
Right.
up there. And I mean, we stayed in touch that day, that night, of course. Um, he was a shell of the man you'd know and recognize. I mean,
And that's why he didn't want me to.
right. I was in there, um, last of his children to communicate with him before he passed. That's not a burden per se, but it's an interesting thing to carry. Um, we had that last conversation. He of course said we'll miss the daily communications and miss the all the fun stuff. But I was in there when the minister came in and heard him say, "I'm not afraid to die." It was surreal. I'm sitting there in the dark, listening to him breathe, and he was fighting with that oxygen mask because he couldn't talk through it, so he'd pull it off and then would run out of air, and he was being
Uh,
stubborn.
this was in November.
No, 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 no. This was January.
This was January. Yeah.
Right. No, the November was a football game when I first heard about it, and it
Right.
was sort of a swift decline. I was just kind of forgetting the timeline, how quickly it happened. But no, so January 25th, we got up there mid-morning. Aunt Cheryl, Uncle Frank, and Aunt Debbie all drove up that same day. And I didn't break personally until Uncle Frank walked in.
I understand. Yeah.
It was quite a moment. But minister came in and they decided that it was time to, I forget the term now, but the powerful stuff that just
Yeah.
lets you coast to the end.
Yeah.
And he kept asking when the Rileys were going to be there. When Aunt Cheryl and them showed up, a little funny moment in that day. But Aunt Cheryl, of course, the oldest of the four,
Yeah.
was trying to talk to him, and he was again stumbling to try to speak through that mask.
Right. Right.
And he said, "You're hollering." And she said, "What? You're hollering." She kept leaning in. I was like, he's saying you're hovering, right? So
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's your dad.
yeah. Um, he kept asking again for people from the past.
Yeah,
Um, and then we stayed in touch, and I know I finally went downstairs and called you because I was like, this is he's asleep and this is going to be it. Um, then of course you came up there and we saw, did you make it for the wake or just the funeral? I don't remember.
both.
Well, at that wake, so many people,
Oh,
dozens it felt like, kept
yeah,
walking by us that I don't recall ever meeting.
yeah.
And they knew more about us, of course, than we did them, but it was an interesting moment in time because we didn't really, I didn't, I can't speak for the other three of us, but we didn't really get that side of him. You know,
No,
he
yeah.
was, uh, of course, he was big money government employee, but you know, we would show up and I remember he took, this is my brother's
He
probably,
was Mike was always very generous,
mhm.
very generous
Well, he,
with
my
his
brother,
money, but with his time, just
right. Oh no, he was a commensurate host. If you
oh,
walk in
oh, he
here,
would and cooking for you, yeah,
yeah, here's a drink, here's some food, have a seat and shut up.
right.
Um, but no, a lot of games, card games and board games and you
Yeah,
know, a lot of the memories from Shreveport, that whole again is kind of a blur. Chicago, I think I went to once
yeah.
and then he was back in Memphis. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of capture more of his own history. And I'm sure there was another question I had along the way for you, but
Oh,
um,
yeah. So in college. It was in college, maybe after that, I don't remember. But so at Tulane, there was the Catholic Newman Center. So the very like Methodist, Episcopalian, and the different faiths, religions, usually had a house just off campus, and so they would welcome the students, Catholic or whoever, and there was a chapel on Broadway on the campus, on the Newman campus. Actually, I mean, it was Newman School, and there was a beautiful little chapel, and my sister got married there, and uh, before that chapel was built, the Newman Center was in this house right off of Carrollton, right next to the campus, and down the street from the Mushroom. Remember the Mushroom
on Broadway,
on Broadway? Yeah,
yeah, hmm.
yeah. So it was down there, and one day he said, "Come on, we're going to play for mass." And I'm thinking, "What?" You know. So brought our guitars, and Mike Sherrill and I played for the mass, and
Do you remember my mother joining y'all for music? Unless that happened without you, but I seem to remember my mom saying she used to play guitar with, I thought both of you.
she did. Oh, yeah, your
I
mom
thought
played.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I don't remember if it was a mass or not, and it could have been. Um, yeah, it could have been. But yeah, oh yeah, we all three played together. Yeah. Um, and so I'll never forget some of the songs he picked out. I mean, we had some, um, upbeat um, Catholic, some Christian songs, um, and I can't remember what they were. But then I remember we played "Help" by the Beatles. I've got to get a message to you by the Bee Gees. And of course, we were playing for generally a younger crowd. So they knew these songs, you know. But I didn't know what to think about that. But yeah, we just belted out the songs. And he was friends with these three people who the husband played guitar and the wife played a stand-up bass. And I think maybe there was another one. But anyway, they became friends and they would play, I'm going to say, gigs together. I remember, I don't exactly know when that was. He was he was dating Mary, who eventually married Val LaFonte. He was dating Mary then. And I remember one time he invited me. They were playing at the Estrahan plantation. That was when they were trying to raise money to restore the plantation. And I didn't bring my guitar or anything, and but they were playing, and they got paid for it. And so Mary and we played tambourine, and we would just have the time. We would flip the tambourines to each other, and and they were playing music, and everybody was liking them. And Mary and I would just, we knew each other. We were all good friends. Um, so I remember that. Um, I don't know. Sorry, I'm off track, I guess, but as usual.
Well, I'm not sure we have a track going anywhere. I know you're
I know I bounce around a lot, but
interesting time of railroading. Let me see. Well, what I meant to ask you earlier, and you sort of touched on it, and speak again as you will. But the you mentioned, of course, Anchero playing guitar with you. Uh, what do you recall about his sisters when you first moved in? Like the family that you mentioned, of course, his father was doing his father's thing, whatever. Um, I guess, what do you remember about the family?
well, I think, and I texted Cheryl about an hour ago because I can't. I think they went to Mercy Academy off of St. Charles to high school, I believe. Um, and I, I don't know. It seemed like we knew each other, and we were friends, but we didn't really hang out. Cheryl and I did for a while. Um, yeah, we were just all we were together a lot. It seemed like coming in and out of the house or whatever. Um, but I don't remember. I don't know. I remember we would. Oh, I remember. I've got a picture of us playing volleyball in Audubon Park. I have a picture. I saw Cheryl and Terry. Um, and I don't know when that was, but it was in Audubon Park. It had to be in college, I believe, or so. Um, yeah, that's yeah. We would just we would just come and go, and then when Mike would come down and visit uh, y'all and stay at your mom's house, and we would play guitars then. And I remember this one time we would get together. Mike and I played the guitar. You loved drums. Um, and Jimmy and Heather were there too. Um, and and your mom was there, and we were singing. Um, we were singing "Wasted on the Way" by Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Had the music and everything. We were singing and playing, and and here I am. I have a serious side of me, but it's mostly just life. We were singing, and we got to a point in that song where it was perfect harmony. And it was, I stopped singing because it's just like that ball that I dropped when your dad threw it. It was like it hit me so hard that it was just a perfect harmony that all of us together were singing. And somehow I think Heather added So I always added the harmony, and I think Heather added the third harmony, and sang high, and you and your brother sang, with your dad, the melody. And I'll never forget that one time. It was just perfect. And,
And that
and
that was at mom's house?
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was
What
always,
roughly what year? So I remember that happening, but I couldn't tell you
it
when.
was, um, it was before Jimmy was in high school. He was born in 81. Geez. So it was in the
93, 94, something like that.
maybe or early 90s,
Yeah.
late
Okay.
80s. All right. And yeah, so whenever um, I remember this one time, a couple of times really, when your dad was down and your mom hosted this beautiful dinner with the whole group of friends. Val and his wife Mary, Johnny, his wife Sharon, Chris Ballone, his wife Sylvia, um, me, uh, Heather and Jimmy, um, all of us together, and she made spaghetti. And it was so much fun. We just had a ball because we were childhood friends, I guess you may say, we were just all of us so close, and we had a ball. It was just so much fun. Um, and oh, I remember we would go out to uh, Deanie's Seafood. Um, all of us would go, and we would just all get together and eat seafood. I remember uh, there was a lunch. I remember, and then I remember we would. I think right after that we went to Cafe Du Monde on Metairie. Like we couldn't get enough to eat at Dini, so we had to stuff ourselves with beignets. Yeah, it's crazy. And there was another lunch that we got together someplace. I don't think it was Dini's, but I think it may have been another seafood restaurant down there. Um, I don't remember the years, but I mean, we were all, so we were married, I guess, and I don't remember all of it, um, but that was the last
I
time.
I remember him really, really liking R&Os. Was that one of them?
Yes, it was
Yeah.
Arnold's. Yeah, um, yeah. We would get together quite a bit, all of us, you know. And I believe that one time was the second to last time I saw Val before he passed away in 2008. Charlie, Chris's brother, passed away in 2008. Um, and, after that, we were really starting we were older, you know. And when your dad died in January 31st of 2018, um, of course, I went up there for the funeral and the wake, and everybody got back together at Jody's house, but I didn't go. I couldn't go, Tim. I just could not. Um, I just wanted to be alone with Mike. You know, um, I should have gone, but I just couldn't go. Um, and then, so that was January. 5 weeks later, Chris Malone passed away. So within 5, 6 weeks, um, we lost both of them. And I was down there for that, the mass and wake and the funeral. And yeah, so it was a hard time that whole period, um, when Val passed away, but then when um, Mike and Chris passed away, um, it was kind of like Yeah. I started feeling older before that, but when your dad passed away, that was when, you know, um, and I've been feeling older ever since. Oh, because I am. So anyway, well, I don't remember off the top of my head other times. Um, do you have any questions that maybe I can answer or
I don't know. I don't think so. We've covered a fair amount to kind of paint the picture from 50 to 80, I suppose.
yeah,
Well, 80, 85, I guess if I was, no, about 89 it must have been when I was apparently singing with you at my mom's house.
yeah. Oh, I remember
Well,
we.
no, he got me that first drum set. You mentioned the drums.
Oh, yeah, I
Uh,
remember the drum set. I
he
remember.
got me that first little drum set. He was married to Tracy, and we were at her parents' house in Bastrop. We'd go there fairly frequently. And again, about the mileage on his car, I cannot imagine.
I, I was it. It had to be over 200,000, huh?
Well, it was easily 300, but
Yeah.
it was Memphis to New Orleans, back to Bastrop, back to New Orleans, back to. I mean, he did it, and I mean, anyway.
I,
Um,
I remember when Heather was maybe 3 or 4. So Mike and Heather were born, I believe, both in uh, 2009. They were the same age. I think maybe Michael was maybe 6 months older than Heather.
Michael's November 79.
Oh, then Heather was older. She was born in August of 79. But, they were the same, you know.
Right, right.
Uh, and they both went to Loyola. Um, I was trying, there was some time, and it just slipped my mind that, mm, yeah, I lost it. I remember Denise and I playing frisbee at the lakefront with Mike. Um, I don't. You got to ask me questions because now my mind is kind of going back. It usually goes back. ADHD does that to you. It usually goes back and forth anyway. Um, but yeah, it's like bouncing around my mind, all the memories. Um, I appreciate this. This is I always think about him when I play the music, and um, I don't play the guitar anymore. I've tried to pick it up, but well, as you get older, and plus I've broken my left wrist and I had a shoulder replacement, left shoulder replacement. So the old fingers don't do the way they used to do. I'm just out of touch with playing the guitar, but I've got it back and new strings, and I've been thinking about picking it up, but I'm building my model railroad, so bouncing back and forth.
Well, do you have some more time
Oh
to
yeah,
keep talking today? Well, then I'll probably just phase out of that one as
okay.
an episode that'll be kind of Jimmy Arnett Part One, My Dad. This has been a production of Where You At Studios, LLC.